Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the SimCity 4 Masterclass. My name is SmullyMK, and you may remember in the last Masterclass video we built this airport runway. This is the second video of the airports sub-series of the Masterclass main series, and in this video we're going to look at taxiways and airfields. The first thing to do is to build our taxiways. As you can see, I have laid down an 8-tile road, and this is to mark the correct 8-tile spacing between the runway and the taxiway. To build the taxiway itself, we go to the airports menu and use the taxiway pieces provided in the RMIP set, and I will link that to you in the description. What you see, what I've just selected, is the 8-tile straight piece. Orient it like so, and place. For shorter sections, you can use the 2-tile straight piece, like you see here. Notice the arrow was pointing up there to get a vertical taxiway. Similarly, if you rotated it, you could get a horizontal taxiway. Now we're going to build a T-junction. There are two parts to this. The first part is to use this taxiway half T piece. Notice the orientation. The arrow needs to point towards the centre of the junction. To fill in the other half of the T-junction, we can use these half taxiway pieces. You have 1 light, 2 light and 3 light options. I like to go for the 3 light because I like the look of the taxiway lights. Obviously, if you wanted a 4-way junction, you would use 2 half T pieces back to back. Now let's look at how to do a 90-degree turn. You'll notice there is this corner piece. Notice how the piece is oriented, and by marking out the position with roads, you can correctly position the corner piece. Notice that it is a 3x3 tile lot, so be careful when placing it to make sure it's in the right place. Now let's look at how to do a diagonal. The first thing you need for a diagonal is this straight centerline piece like you see here. Notice the correct orientation of the lot. The arrow is pointing to the right there, and you can figure out how to do all the rest of the orientations. To do a junction between a diagonal and a straight taxiway, one of the pieces you use is this elbow inner piece, but for now, like you see there, but before we build that, I'm just going to build this straight section of taxiway to connect up to the diagonal. I'm going to need some room for this elbow piece. No, that's how you position it. Notice that the arrow was pointing towards the centre of the straight taxiway. The other bit you need is this 45-degree turn piece. This is the outer piece, I believe. And you position it like so. Notice the 1-tile gap between that and the inner corner piece. Fill it in using the half taxiway pieces. This taxiway single tile piece to handle the 1-tile gap. And then fill in the missing diagonal center line with the diagonal center line piece, and there's also this half center line piece to fill in the straight taxiway center line through the middle of the junction. Notice, like all lots, the arrow was pointing towards the center of the straight taxiway. Now we're doing the actual sides of the diagonal. There are 2 lots to this. One is this little wedge piece. Notice that the arrow is pointing to the center of the taxiway. And then there's this main wedge piece. And those should be oriented in the same way as the fin wedges. Okay, so now we've done a diagonal and straight and corner taxiway, we're now going to look at building some gates for our airplanes. In this video we're going to use the 737 gates. It is important to leave some gates empty when you are building them, because it is more realistic to have some gates unoccupied. Leave enough room between the taxiway and your gates for your planes to get in and push back safely. As you can see here, I have left 3 unoccupied gates in random positions. To connect between the gates and the taxiway, you need this little T-junction piece here that you can get from the Taxiway Markings Improvement Project, or TMIP. Notice that there is a thin strip of apron on the side of the taxiway piece. The other side is filled in with the half fillers in the usual way, as we have seen earlier. Here I'm just filling in the remaining taxiway pieces. To connect the apron to the taxiway, you will need a ramp centerline piece, which you can see selected here. Should be pretty obvious where this goes and how it is oriented. Fill in the rest of the ramp using the ramp filler pieces. And yes, I did know I missed that centerline piece. Do not worry, I'm going to come back and fill it in now. There are also some gate marking pieces, but we'll come to those later. Now we're going to build some business jet gates for some smaller planes. These are from the RMIP set. Can't remember which one, it's either 3 or 4. Going to build about 8 gates here. As with the regular gates, you want to leave enough space between them for the planes to push back safely and leave the terminal. To connect the taxiway to the gates, you use these orthogonal to diagonal pieces for the corners. Notice that the arrows are pointing towards the gates on these lots. We fill in with the straight centerline pieces. We connect the taxiway to the aprons and the gates in the usual way using this T intersection piece that we used earlier. Fill it in using the filler piece you just saw selected there. And for the junction on the apron itself, we need this 3-way splitter piece, which I am about to select, I believe. There you go. Notice that there are these yellow dot things, for want of a better word, and that tell you how the piece is going to be oriented, so use those to your advantage. What I am doing now is I am placing some center lines with gate numbers. Unfortunately, at the time of recording, the TMIP2 set had not been released. It has now, and I will put a link into the description for you, so you can download that, and we will be using it in subsequent Masterclass videos. There are 4 different gate numbers for this texture, I believe, so use all of them just randomly as best you can. The TMIP2 option gives you more letters and numbers that you can use. Please be aware of the correct orientation of the gate number pieces. Notice we are pointing away from the planes. And now we've pretty much seen all the techniques we need to build the taxiways, so off camera here I'm now going to fill in the rest of the taxiways. Obviously this takes quite a long time, so as you can see I've cut the boring bit out of the video. And you can see our taxiway system is now complete. Next thing we're going to do is to build some walkways on the ramp here to allow passengers to get from the planes to the terminal. The pieces you want are in the RMIP set. You'll notice there is this left end piece that we've used here. The end right piece goes on the other side. Notice that the arrow points towards the gate. Use the ramp main walkway T pieces to provide a T junction with a straight walkway and a connection to the gate itself. Do the same on the other side. Now of course there are straight pieces. Unfortunately there are no. I did want to make a walkway on the south side of this apron, however that would have required a corner piece, and there is no corner walkway piece in the RMIP set. Or at least not in the original set which I was using at the time I recorded this footage. So instead we're going to have to make our own terminal connections or a connection to a bus, but we will do that in the next video. Right now I'm just filling in the rest of this apron using the usual apron and taxiway filler pieces. Apologies for the lack of background music due to the limitations of my PC. Since my last video I have bought a new PC, mainly because the old laptop I was using before broke. However, it seems like this PC is not quite powerful enough to record video and sound at the same time, so there is no background music, so apologies for that. Anyways, moving swiftly on, we are now coming to the taxiway signs part of this video. You'll notice I used the taxiway identifier piece there, and you place this at the start of every taxiway, usually on the left. At junctions, you use this taxiway right sign to indicate a turn to the right. Notice that the arrow is notice the orientation of the arrow. You can think of this as being oriented towards the pilot's view, towards the cockpit. Of course, on the other side we have the taxiway left piece. It takes me quite a while to select it here, so apologies for that. There is also this left and right sign which we use as we are coming to a T-junction or a four-way junction. Right now though I'm building the left taxiway signs indicating turns to the left, and these work just like the right turn signs. For diagonals, as our diagonals end at T-junctions, we need these diagonal left-right pieces. Notice the orientation. Again, it's sort of pointing towards the pilots as they would see it. Obviously with a 45-degree offset. the next thing to do is to build these gate markers, and it took me a bit of a while to find these when I was recording this video originally, so apologies for not doing it earlier. These are the gate boundary lots, and you will notice that we use these to connect the gate markings together. It is important to note that there are separate lots for left and right, and that these lots will only work with these gates. For other gates, such as the 747 gates, you will need a different set of markings. However, I believe these are provided in the RMIP sets, so this should not present a problem for you. Okay, so our taxiways and aprons are now complete. So let's look at some other things we can put in the airfield. What I have just placed is a VOR station. These are little radio beacons or radio transmitters that are used by pilots to navigate, and are a common feature at larger airports. Another very important feature we can build, or should build, is a fence around the airport. I believe this is mandated in the aviation regulations. Please feel free to correct me in the comments if I am wrong in saying that. Place the fence sufficiently far away from the taxiway to give your airplanes enough of a safety margin in case of overruns. You'll see that there are orthogonal, diagonal and curved 90-degree corner pieces, so use those as you see appropriate. There are also some grass pieces, which we are now going to use to grass up the rest of the airport. As you can see here, that has now been done. I decided not to subject you to the full process of doing that from start to finish, as it is quite long and tedious. So this is our completed airfield. There are some finishing touches we can add, but we will cover those in later videos. As always with airports, they look cracking at night, so let's have a look at night. You can see all the blue lights for the taxiways are up, as well as lights on the planes and of the runway. This is probably one of my favourite things about the RMIP sets, as I said in the first airports video. And that's really all I have to say in this video. So I am going to conclude it there. In part 3 of the Masterclass Airport series, we will be looking at the airport terminals, namely how to build an airport terminal using the, I believe they are the ACB-VLT lots. If that is incorrect, I will of course correct it. And yes, that's pretty much all I want to say. So at this point I think an apology is due for not putting out a video in a very long time. Unfortunately, I do have a full-time job now and don't have a lot of time to myself to record voiceovers. I like to record voiceovers with myself. I do still live with my parents for the time being, but I like to be by myself when recording voiceovers, just so I get a bit of peace and quiet and there's no background distractions. So thank you very much for watching. I have been SmileyMK, and I will see you next time. Goodbye for now.